Jarek had always thought life on the mining colony was as simple as it could get. Days passed in a predictable cycle of heat, dust, and machinery. He would wake before sunrise, stretch his stiff back, and make his way to the maintenance hall, where the hum of drones and the clatter of tools filled the air. The colony's routines were strict, but Jarek had found comfort in them. The work was honest, the hours long, and the pay meager, but it was enough to survive. Alone in his small, metal-walled room, he would stare out at the endless desert, imagining a life beyond the horizon. But dreams beyond the colony were dangerous. The Council had made it clear. Humans belonged to the mining fields. Adventure, or contact with the unknown, was forbidden. That night, Jarek was on a supply run to repair a malfunctioning drilling unit far outside the colony perimeter. The desert stretched endlessly, the twin moons casting silver light on the dunes. The wind shifted sand into delicate waves, each grain whispering under his boots. Jarek's mind wandered as he worked, as it always did. He thought about simple pleasures he didn't have. Fresh food, laughter, music. He thought about the stories he had heard as a child, legends of stars that hid civilizations far beyond human reach. Those stories were dismissed as fantasy by the older miners, but they had always held a spark of hope for Jarek. The drilling unit hummed as he repaired it, and he wiped sweat from his brow. Then, something strange caught his eye. A faint glow, blue and soft, danced on the edge of the horizon. At first, he thought it was a reflection of the moons, or a rare crystal hidden beneath the sand. But it moved, as if it had intent. Jarek's curiosity overpowered his caution. He set down his tools and walked toward the light. Each step stirred sand that glinted like silver. As he drew closer, he froze. There, lying on the dune, was a girl. She was small, fragile in appearance. Yet there was a strength in her posture. Her skin shimmered, faintly glowing under the moonlight. Her eyes were enormous and reflective, a color he could not name, like a mix of stars and deep oceans. She was unlike any human he had ever seen. Her features delicate, but impossible to classify. Jarek's heart pounded, not from fear, but from wonder. He knew, instinctively, that she was extraordinary. The girl spoke, though he could not understand the words. Her voice was melodic, almost hypnotic, and it carried an urgent calmness. She raised her hand slightly, and Jarek instinctively knelt down, not out of submission, but out of a need to connect. He tried to respond, speaking in the basic colony language. "Are you hurt? Can you understand me?" Her eyes widened, and she made a soft sound, almost a whisper. And then, she leaned closer, her voice softer now, almost a song in his mind rather than his ears. Though he could not comprehend her language, a single thought became clear in his chest. She trusts me. Jarek's mind raced. The Council had forbidden any contact with alien life. Discovery could mean imprisonment. Or worse. But he could not leave her. She was alone, frightened, and clearly far from home. And somehow, he felt that his life had been leading to this exact moment. He lifted her gently, supporting her weight, and started walking back toward his shuttle. She made another soft sound, and this time, Jarek felt it more than heard it. It was a vibration that seemed to resonate inside him, deep in his chest. And then she whispered something, almost inaudible, but it shook him. Words, or maybe a feeling, that promised change, promise, and destiny. He did not understand her completely, but a strange warmth and certainty filled him. Her secret, whatever it was, had chosen him. Back at the colony, Jarek hid the girl in an abandoned maintenance bay, a place no one visited. She sat quietly, watching him as he moved about, never touching anything, yet always observing. He named her Lyra, after the constellation he had admired as a boy. Lyra did not smile, but her eyes softened when he spoke her name. Over the next few days, Jarek tried to understand her. He brought food, clean water, and blankets. He communicated using simple gestures, drawings in the dust, and the occasional sound she seemed to recognize. Slowly, he realized that she understood more than he initially thought. When he pointed at a star chart and drew a line across it, she touched the chart and traced a different path. Jarek leaned closer and saw constellations he had never known, distant galaxies, and star systems that seemed impossible. One night, as he slept on the hard floor beside her for warmth, he dreamed vividly. In the dream, he stood on the edge of the desert, but the desert stretched into stars. Lyra appeared beside him, her eyes glowing, and she spoke in that melodic language. Jarek understood her perfectly in the dream. She spoke of worlds on the brink of destruction, of civilizations rising and falling, and of a choice that would change the fate of many. He woke, gasping, sweat clinging to his skin, the words of her song echoing in his mind. The Colony Council began to notice strange occurrences. Supplies moved, equipment was misplaced, and Jarek seemed distracted. One of the supervisors, Growl, grew suspicious and confronted him. "You've been acting strange, Jarek. Are you hiding something?" Jarek's heart pounded, but he smiled faintly. I just work long hours. You know how it is." Growl narrowed his eyes, unconvinced. "Watch yourself. Anything out of the ordinary in this colony is dangerous. You know what the rules are." "Underslam." Jarek nodded, forcing calm into his expression. But inside, a storm raged. He knew that hiding Lyra was no longer just a choice, it was a necessity. She was fragile, yes, but she carried a secret powerful enough to change everything. He didn't yet understand it fully, but he felt it in every nerve. Days turned into nights, and Jarek spent more time with Lyra. He discovered that when she touched machinery, it responded differently. A broken drone would hum to life under her fingers, circuits sparking to a rhythm that seemed alive. Jarek's technical knowledge, combined with her strange intuitive ability, created solutions he had never imagined possible. One evening, a sudden tremor shook the colony. Dust fell from the ceilings, alarms blared, and miners scrambled to safety. Jarek rushed to Lyra, who had been standing quietly in the shadows. She whispered again, her voice almost a song in the chaos, and the tremor stopped. The machines froze mid-alarm, and silence returned. Jarek stared at her in shock. How did you do that?" She tilted her head, as if questioning why he was surprised. And then, almost in his mind, he heard the thought, "I did not create this. I only show what already is." From that moment, Jarek realized that Lyra was not merely an alien child lost in the desert, she was something far more profound. She carried knowledge, understanding, and abilities that humans had never known. And her secret, whatever it truly was, had chosen him as its keeper. As the moon set and the desert turned a pale gray, Jarek sat beside her in silence. He knew the colony's rules would not allow this. That discovery could mean the end of everything he knew. But he also knew something else. The moment he had found Lyra, his life had changed. Destiny had reached out through her, whispering a secret that would not allow him to remain a simple miner, a simple engineer, a simple man. And somewhere, far beyond the desert and the stars he had only dreamed of, forces were moving. Forces that had noticed Lyra's presence, and would stop at nothing to reclaim what she held. Jarek did not yet know what those forces were, nor the full power of her secret, but for the first time, fear was accompanied by purpose. For the first time, he understood that his life, as ordinary as it had seemed, was about to unfold into something extraordinary. The wind carried the faint scent of metal and sand as he looked at Lyra. Her eyes glimmered under the dim lights of the maintenance bay. She whispered again, almost inaudible, a secret that danced on the edge of understanding. It was a promise, a warning, and an invitation, and Jarek, who had lived a life of quiet routine and forgotten dreams, knew in that moment that he could never go back. The desert outside stretched endlessly, silent and watchful, a mirror to the vastness of the universe awaiting him, and as the first light of dawn touched the colony, Jarek made a quiet vow to himself and to Lyra. He would protect her. He would uncover the secret she carried, and together, they would face whatever destiny had prepared for them, no matter how impossible it seemed, because something in him had already changed. The ordinary life he had known was gone. In its place was a path illuminated by her secret, leading into the unknown, toward the stars, and toward a destiny that would challenge everything he had ever believed about life, humanity, and the universe. And for the first time, Jarek felt truly alive. The morning air was crisp, carrying the scent of sand and machinery. Yet Jarek hardly noticed it. His mind was entirely on Lyra. She had spent the night quietly sitting in the corner of the maintenance bay, her eyes reflecting the pale sunlight like twin pools of distant galaxies. He still did not fully understand her, but he could sense the weight of her secret pressing gently on him, urging him to act, to learn, to protect. He had spent the first day cautiously observing her, but the second day brought subtle changes. Lyra no longer seemed scared of him, though her gaze often lingered beyond him, as if listening to voices he could not hear. She began touching machines with an ease that went beyond repair or operation. Drones that had been silent for weeks responded to her touch, lights blinking softly, servos whirring back to life as though awakening from a long slumber. Jarek's heart raced with awe. There was something inside her knowledge, power that humans could barely comprehend. He decided it was time to try communicating more directly. Using sketches in the dust and simple symbols, he began drawing star maps, hoping she would respond. At first, she just watched, tilting her head curiously. Then, she placed her slender hand over his sketches, and the lines shifted beneath her touch, forming constellations he had never seen before. They glimmered faintly, almost like living energy. Jarek's breath caught. What are these?" he asked. She did not answer in words. Instead, she raised her hand and drew a circle in the air, glowing faintly with the same light as her skin. Within the circle, a vision unfolded, a planet burning, cities collapsing, and strange machines roaming the streets. Humans, yet not humans, fleeing from something they could not stop. He took a step back. "Is this your home?" he whispered. Lyra shook her head, then traced another shape, this one resembling a starship, sleek and unlike anything Jarek had seen. Energy flowed along its surface, glowing lines that pulsed as if alive. She looked at him, eyes wide, and Jarek understood this was a warning, not just for her, but for him, and perhaps for the whole human race. Over the next few days, Jarek and Lyra fell into a strange rhythm. She would show him glimpses of the universe, fragments of her past, visions of places humans had never visited. In return, he shared stories of the colony, of his simple life, of humans struggling against their limitations. Somehow, in these exchanges, they began to trust each other deeply. He felt an unspoken connection, a bond forged not by blood or origin, but by necessity and understanding. Then came the first real test. One morning, alarms rang through the colony. Jarek had been repairing a mining drone when the sirens blared. He glanced at Lyra, who had been standing silently beside him, and felt her presence tense. Something was coming. Not the usual sandstorms, not mechanical failures, something else entirely. Outside, massive shadows moved across the dunes. Sleek, dark ships glided above the colony, their surfaces reflecting the twin moons in sharp glints. Jarek's heart pounded. He had never seen anything like them. They were hunters, precise and silent, and they were scanning for something or someone. Lyra reached for his arm, her grip firm, her eyes shining. Jarek understood. "We have to leave," he said, urgency in his voice. But leaving the colony meant breaking every rule they had been taught, risking everything they knew. Yet there was no choice. He could not let them take her. They moved quickly, slipping through maintenance tunnels and side passages, avoiding the main gates where the security drones would see them. Lyra's abilities became more evident with every step. She could sense the drones before they activated, manipulating their sensors just enough to let them pass undetected. Jarek followed, amazed and terrified in equal measure. Outside the colony, They found a shuttle hidden among the dunes, left behind by miners long gone. Lyra guided Jarek to the controls. Though he had flown small craft before, this shuttle responded differently under her direction. Lights blinked in unfamiliar patterns, energy flowing along circuits in ways he could not understand. With a soft command from her, the engines roared to life, lifting them above the desert. As they rose into the night sky, Jarek realized the enormity of what they had done. The colony was behind them, vulnerable, exposed. The hunters above were still scanning, and somewhere in the vastness of space, danger was closing in. Lyra remained calm, but he could sense her tension. She had fled before, but never with someone like him. Never with a human who had the courage or the stubbornness to stand beside her. Once they were safely in orbit, Lyra finally spoke, though not in words. Instead, images and feelings filled Jarek's mind. He saw her homeworld, a lush planet now in ruins. Machines of immense power, not of her making, had destroyed it. Her people had fought, but they were few, and their knowledge was vast but vulnerable. She was the last, and within her, she carried a secret powerful enough to tip the balance of the galaxy. A technology, a starship engine capable of faster-than-light travel, shielded from detection. If misused, it could destroy civilizations. If understood and wielded wisely, it could elevate humanity to a new stage, granting them a chance to reach beyond the stars. Jarek staggered under the weight of this revelation. You mean, this is yours? He asked, voice trembling. She nodded, eyes solemn, and he felt the truth sink in. He was not just protecting a scared girl. He was now the guardian of something that could change everything. The shuttle glided past asteroid fields and luminous gas clouds. Lyra guided him through navigation using gestures and intuitive motions, showing him paths he had never considered. Jarek, though anxious, began to understand. Her knowledge was vast, but it was subtle, almost symbiotic. She did not need words to teach. She needed only presence, and he learned by following. But the hunters were relentless. Dark ships moved silently through space, scanning, analyzing, predicting. Jarek knew it was only a matter of time before they were detected. "We have to be careful," he said. Lyra's eyes reflected stars beyond imagining, and in that gaze, he saw agreement and something else, hope. Their journey took them to strange worlds, each more hostile and alien than the last. One planet had a frozen surface, jagged ice cliffs taller than the colony's tallest buildings. Another was a storm of plasma, electric winds tearing through the atmosphere. Each test forced Jarek to adapt, to combine his human ingenuity with Lyra's alien intuition. They survived through cooperation, through trust, through understanding, and with each challenge, Jarek felt himself growing not just in skill, but in confidence, in purpose. On a night when the stars seemed unusually close, Lyra revealed another fragment of her knowledge. With a gentle touch, she opened a panel in the shuttle that Jarek had never noticed. Inside were devices of alien design, glowing faintly. "This," he whispered, awestruck, "is technology." She nodded, and he realized it was more than technology. It was a map, a guide, and a weapon, all in one. Jarek began to piece together the enormity of their task. The secret Lyra carried was not simply hers, it was a responsibility. Someone, or something, wanted it. Someone or something would not stop until they had it. And now, he was involved. There was no going back. The ordinary life of the colony, of routine and simplicity, was gone. His destiny had begun. One evening, as they rested on the surface of a neutral planet, the hunters finally appeared. Sleek, black ships descended from the sky, weapons glowing, sensors scanning. Jarek and Lyra hid among rock formations, but he could feel the tension in the air, thick and heavy. Lyra whispered again, her voice almost inside his mind, and a plan began to form. Using the alien technology, Jarek created diversions, shifts of light and energy that confused the hunters' sensors. Lyra guided him, her abilities amplifying his improvisation. The hunters fired, but their attacks missed. Diverted by the strange fields that pulsed from the shuttle, Jarek realized that the secret was not just a tool. It was also a shield. A way to survive. A way to level the playing field against forces far beyond human understanding. After the encounter, they rested, exhausted but alive. Jarek looked at Lyra, admiration and gratitude mixing with fear and uncertainty. "I don't know if I'm ready for this," he admitted. She reached out and placed her hand over his, a gesture of reassurance and connection. He felt warmth, confidence, and a silent promise. Together, they could face anything. And yet, even as they celebrated a small victory, Jarek knew that the universe was vast, and their journey was only beginning. The hunters would not give up. The secret Lyra carried could shift the balance of power across galaxies, and he, a simple engineer from a mining colony, had become its guardian. He lay back beneath the alien stars that night, watching their distant glow, and felt something he had never known. Purpose. A path had opened, leading far beyond the colony, beyond the stars he had only dreamed of. Lyra whispered softly beside him, and he understood, finally, that the secret was not just hers, it was theirs. Together, they would discover what it truly meant to wield it, and what destiny had prepared for them. The universe stretched endlessly before them. Mysterious, dangerous, and magnificent. And in that moment, Jarek knew he would follow Lyra, learn from her, and protect the secret, no matter the cost. His ordinary life was gone, replaced by a journey into the unknown, where courage, trust, and destiny intertwined. For the first time, he felt alive in a way he had never imagined. The adventure had begun. The shuttle glided silently through the blackness of space, carrying Jarek and Lyra farther from the colony than he had ever imagined. Stars stretched in endless arrays, glittering like scattered jewels across a canvas of night. Every twist of the shuttle, every hum of the engine, reminded him that their life was no longer ordinary. Each movement was a step deeper into a universe that seemed alive, full of danger and possibility. He still could not fully comprehend Lyra's abilities, yet he felt her presence constantly guiding him, a beacon in the dark. For days, they navigated the void, avoiding patrols, skimming past asteroid fields, and passing through uncharted sectors of space. Lyra had begun to show him fragments of the knowledge she carried: how to manipulate energy flows in ways that seemed impossible, how to interface with alien systems, and even subtle ways to sense movement in space before it appeared on instruments. Jarek's mind, trained in machines and engineering, struggled at first. But gradually, he began to grasp the principles, understanding not just the mechanics, but the harmony of energy and matter itself. It was during one of these lessons that the first real test came. A dark shadow appeared on the sensors, an alien vessel, massive and silent, cutting through the void like a predator. The hunters had tracked them. Jarek's hands shook on the controls. Lyra's eyes narrowed, her hand brushing over a console, sending a ripple of energy through the shuttle. Instruments flickered, sensors realigned, and the vessel passed by without noticing them. "They are clever," Jarek said, voice low. "But we are faster than them." Lyra did not answer, only gestured to the holographic map in front of him. Routes, safe passages, and gravitational currents that humans had never used stretched before him, almost alive. Following her directions, Jarek maneuvered the shuttle through a cluster of unstable asteroids. Rocks spun and collided, yet the ship passed safely, shielded by Lyra's subtle guidance. Afterward, Jarek realized he was changing. Fear was still there, but it had transformed into determination. He could no longer be the engineer who fixed broken machines for a living. He had become a partner, a protector, someone who mattered in a galaxy far larger than his mind had once imagined. And Lyra's trust in him gave him a courage he had never known. Their journey soon led them to a planet covered in jagged mountains and rivers of molten rock. Lyra explained that it was a temporary refuge, one of many ancient planets seeded with her people's technology. She had visited it long ago, before her race was destroyed. Jarek, despite the danger, felt a strange awe at the sight of the molten rivers reflecting the light of two suns. The place seemed alive, almost breathing, as if the planet itself recognized them. The hunters, however, were relentless. Jarek and Lyra could feel their presence in the void, calculating, patient, and waiting for the right moment. Lyra taught Jarek how to sense the energy signatures of their ships before they were even visible. He learned to read the subtle distortions in space, small vibrations in the shuttle's shields, and the faint glimmers of artificial light bending around them. Slowly, the shuttle became more than a vehicle. It became an extension of their will. One night, while hiding in a cavern carved into black rock near a volcano, Lyra revealed more of her secret. She showed Jarek a holographic projection of her homeworld before it was destroyed. Cities of light floated above the surface, connected by networks of energy that pulsed like lifeblood. People moved within the light, their faces radiant with understanding and peace. Then, she showed the destruction, the machines, the chaos, and the overwhelming power of the force that had hunted her. Jarek felt his chest tighten. "How could anyone do this?" he whispered. Lyra's hand touched his arm, and for a moment, he felt her sadness, her fear, and her determination. "They will stop at nothing," he said. "We have to keep going." She nodded, her eyes reflecting the molten rivers outside the cavern. They left the planet at dawn, moving into uncharted space once again. Lyra's abilities grew stronger the longer they traveled. She could sense gravitational shifts, manipulate minor energy fields, and even communicate with the shuttle's systems in ways Jarek could not explain. He trusted her instincts completely. But he also began to notice something extraordinary. Her guidance was teaching him to think beyond the rules of human engineering, to see patterns in energy, matter, and movement that no one had taught him before. Their next destination was an ancient station orbiting a dead star, abandoned for centuries. Lyra had sensed its presence long before the sensors detected it. Jarek marveled at the structure, massive, angular, and glowing faintly with alien energy. Inside, corridors twisted in impossible patterns, and walls pulsed with a rhythm that seemed alive. Lyra moved with confidence, leading him through paths that bent gravity and light, showing him that the universe itself could be understood if only one knew how to listen. But danger was never far behind. The hunters arrived once more, their ships cutting through the void with terrifying precision. This time, they brought weapons designed to destroy both Lyra and the shuttle. Jarek's hands shook as the first blasts struck the station, shaking corridors and sending sparks flying. Lyra placed her hand on a console, and energy surged through the station. Lights blinked in sequence, shields activated, and the hunters' attacks were deflected. Jarek realized that Lyra's secret was not just knowledge, it was power, a way to fight back against forces that humans could barely imagine. The battle lasted hours. Jarek and Lyra worked in unison, improvising strategies, redirecting energy flows, and using the station's ancient defenses to their advantage. Jarek marveled at her abilities. But he also realized that he was no longer merely following her instructions. He was thinking, adapting, and contributing in ways that made the difference between survival and destruction. By the end, the hunters retreated, temporarily defeated. But Jarek knew they would return. They were patient, relentless, and deadly. After the fight, Jarek and Lyra rested in the heart of the station. She sat quietly, eyes closed, as if meditating. He studied her, realizing how much she had changed him. He was no longer the same man who had found her in the desert. He was braver, more thoughtful, more aware of the universe's vastness and the responsibilities that came with knowledge. And he knew that Lyra's secret was not just a tool, it was a test, a challenge to see if humans could rise to a level worthy of the universe's mysteries. The next day, they explored the station further. Lyra led him to a chamber filled with alien technology, devices that pulsed with energy, and patterns that seemed alive. Some were dormant, others active, waiting for someone to understand them. She gestured to one of the consoles, and Jarek felt a connection he could not explain. It was as if the technology itself recognized him, responding to his touch with subtle movements of light and energy. He realized that he and Lyra were part of something much larger, a chain of events that spanned galaxies and generations. Days passed as they explored the station, learning its secrets. Jarek began to understand fragments of Lyra's knowledge, able to manipulate energy fields in small ways. He fixed broken devices, activated dormant systems, and even learned to anticipate minor fluctuations in the station's power networks. Lyra watched, her eyes reflecting both pride and caution. She knew the hunters would return, stronger and more prepared. Every lesson was a preparation for the battles ahead. Finally, the hunters appeared again. Faster, smarter, more determined. Jarek and Lyra had anticipated them, but even so, the fight was intense. The station's defenses activated under Lyra's guidance, creating energy barriers, manipulating gravitational fields, and sending pulses that disrupted the enemy ship's systems. Jarek worked tirelessly, coordinating systems, rerouting power, and improvising strategies with a growing confidence he had never known. In the chaos, Lyra whispered a new instruction, showing Jarek a hidden console. With her guidance, he activated a sequence that created a spatial rift. A brief tear in the fabric of space. The hunters' ships were caught in the distortion, their movements slowed, their weapons misfiring. It was a daring maneuver, one that required precision, courage, and trust. Jarek executed it flawlessly. Feeling a surge of exhilaration, they had escaped once more, but the cost was clear. The rift had drained the station's energy, leaving them vulnerable and stranded near a mysterious planet orbiting a dying star. Jarek looked at Lyra, breathless but alive. "We did it," he said, though his voice carried both relief and the weight of what they had survived. She nodded, her eyes glowing softly. "Yes," he felt her thought in his mind, "but it is only the beginning." On the surface of the planet, they found refuge in a canyon, carved by ancient rivers of stone and ice. The planet was silent, eerie, yet strangely beautiful. Lyra led him to a hidden cave, one filled with symbols and devices left by her people long ago. She explained, without words, that this place had been designed as a sanctuary, a training ground, and a repository of knowledge. Jarek felt a thrill of understanding the journey was far from over. This was only a step toward something much greater. As they settled for the night, Jarek reflected on how much had changed. He was no longer a miner. He was a guardian, a student, a partner in a journey that spanned stars. He had faced hunters, navigated the unknown, and survived challenges that would have broken anyone else. And he knew, deep in his heart, that Lyra's trust in him was both a gift and a responsibility. The universe stretched endlessly above them, stars like pinpricks of light in the darkness. Jarek knew that the hunters would return, stronger and smarter. But he also knew they were ready. Together, he and Lyra had survived challenges that would have crushed ordinary humans. And now, on the edge of an alien planet, surrounded by remnants of a lost civilization, they could prepare for what was coming next. Jarek looked at Lyra, sitting quietly beside him, her eyes reflecting the stars. He felt a surge of determination, courage, and hope. Whatever destiny awaited them, he knew they would face it together. The universe was vast, dangerous, and full of unknowns, but for the first time, he felt ready. For the first time, Jarek understood that destiny was not something that happened to a person, it was something they could shape, if they had courage, trust, and the will to act. And he had all three. The alien planet was silent, the kind of silence that pressed against the skin and whispered of forgotten histories. Jarek stood at the mouth of the cave, staring out at jagged mountains bathed in the dim glow of a dying sun. Lyra was beside him, her eyes reflecting the fading light, glowing faintly as if drawing power from the planet itself. For the first time, Jarek understood that this place was not just a refuge, it was a crucible, meant to prepare them for the final trials ahead. They had survived the hunters, navigated the void, and faced challenges that had tested their courage, intellect, and will. But Jarek knew the ultimate test was coming. The secret Lyra carried, the knowledge, the technology, the power, was a force that could not remain hidden forever. Someone, somewhere, had sensed it. And now, the universe itself seemed to conspire to bring them to a confrontation that would decide the fate of many worlds. Inside the cave, Lyra guided Jarek to a chamber hidden behind a wall of crystalline rock. The chamber pulsed with soft blue light, resonating with energy that Jarek could feel in his bones. Strange symbols glowed faintly on the walls, shifting as if alive. At the center was a console, alien and intricate, with floating holograms depicting galaxies, star systems, and strange networks of energy that connected them all. Lyra placed her hand on the console, and it responded, lights tracing lines across the chamber in a dance of power. "This is incredible," Jarek whispered. He ran his fingers over the holograms, and the symbols shifted under his touch. Lyra's gaze met his, and he felt her thought, "You are ready." For hours, they explored the chamber. Jarek learned to manipulate the energy flows, to redirect them, to unlock systems that had lain dormant for centuries. Lyra showed him fragments of her people's technology tools that could generate shields, devices that could alter gravitational fields, and even the schematics of a starship engine unlike anything humans had built. Each revelation left him breathless. He understood now why the hunters had pursued them so relentlessly. The knowledge Lyra carried was not just powerful, it was transformational. As night fell over the alien landscape, a tremor ran through the planet. Jarek looked outside to see dark ships slicing through the sky. The hunters had found them. This time, there would be no chance for stealth or evasion. They had to fight, or everything would be lost. Jarek and Lyra prepared. Lyra touched the console, sending pulses of energy through the chamber, activating defensive systems hidden in the planet itself. Shields shimmered around the cave, and energy fields formed patterns in the sky, visible even from a distance. Jarek took control of auxiliary systems, rerouting power to defenses, weapons, and navigation nodes that could shift the battlefield to their advantage. The first wave of hunters arrived, sleek ships glinting in the dying light. They unleashed energy beams, tearing across the mountains, sending rocks and molten streams flying. Jarek and Lyra coordinated seamlessly. Lyra guided the energy fields, and Jarek directed the countermeasures, using gravity distortions to mislead the attackers, forcing them to misfire. The hunters' precision was impressive, but together, Jarek and Lyra were unpredictable, adapting faster than any algorithm could calculate. Hours passed in a blur of light, energy, and movement. Jarek felt himself pushed to limits he never knew he had. He rerouted power to the shield generators at the last possible second, creating a protective barrier, just as a massive energy blast tore through the mountains nearby. Sparks flew, and the air smelled of ionized metal. But Lyra remained calm, her focus unwavering. He realized that courage was not just about fearlessness, it was about concentration, skill, and trust. And in her presence, he felt all three in abundance. Then came the moment that would decide everything. A massive ship, larger and faster than the others, emerged from the dark void. Its weapons were unlike any they had faced before, pulsing with energy that distorted space itself. Lyra's eyes widened slightly, and Jarek felt a chill in his chest. This was the final hunter, the one who had orchestrated the pursuit from the beginning. Lyra touched his arm. "We do this together," her thought resonated in his mind. Jarek nodded, understanding perfectly. It was no longer a battle of weapons alone. It was a test of unity, strategy, and mastery of the secret she carried. The massive ship fired. Energy waves ripped through the mountains, shaking the ground beneath them. Jarek redirected power to the cave's defenses, creating ripples of force that absorbed the attack. Lyra extended her hands, sending pulses of energy outward, manipulating the battlefield, creating traps and diversions that disoriented the hunters. Jarek's mind raced, coordinating, anticipating, improvising. The chamber pulsed with life, responding to their combined efforts. In the chaos, Jarek realized the truth. The secret Lyra carried was not just a tool, but a bridge. It was a bridge between her people's understanding of the universe and the potential of humanity. And together, they had the power to wield it wisely. to protect life, and to shape the destiny of civilizations. The hunters regrouped, firing a final, massive energy barrage. Jarek and Lyra exchanged a glance. Lyra whispered something in her melodic language, a sound that resonated in his chest. Instinctively, he placed his hands on the console, channeling energy through the station, through the planet, and into a precise beam that collided with the hunter's ship. The energy engulfed it, bending space, redirecting its weapons back upon itself. The ship exploded in a brilliant flash, and the remaining hunters retreated, fleeing into the void. Silence fell. The planet trembled gently. Then stillness returned. Jarek sank to his knees, exhausted. But a sense of triumph filled him. Lyra stood beside him, her eyes reflecting the light of the distant stars. They had survived, but more than that, they had proven themselves capable of wielding the power responsibly. As the adrenaline faded, Jarek looked around the chamber. The alien technology pulsed softly, responding to their presence. Lyra gestured to the holographic star maps, showing him routes to distant worlds, hidden stations, and safe havens. He realized that their journey was far from over. The universe was vast, filled with mysteries, dangers, and opportunities. But for the first time, he felt ready. He was no longer just a miner, a simple engineer from a forgotten colony. He was a guardian, a partner, and a protector of knowledge that could change the galaxy. Lyra touched his hand, and for a moment, Jarek felt her memories, her experiences, her hopes. He understood the weight of what they carried, the responsibility to protect life, to guide humanity, and to prevent the hunters from using the knowledge for destruction. And he knew, without doubt, that he would never falter. In the days that followed, they explored the station and the surrounding planet, uncovering more of her people's legacy. They found energy sources, tools, and star charts that had remained dormant for centuries. Jarek learned to operate these systems, growing more confident with each passing day. He realized that knowledge and courage were inseparable. One could not exist without the other. Eventually, Lyra guided him to a small shuttle, hidden within the planet's core. It was unlike any ship Jarek had seen. Sleek, efficient, and capable of speeds beyond human technology. Lyra explained, without words, that this shuttle would allow them to travel to the far reaches of the galaxy, places humans had never reached. He marveled at the possibilities. Together, they could explore, learn, and protect civilizations. They could shape the future, ensuring that the secret Lyra carried would be a force for good. As they prepared to leave, Jarek took one last look at the planet. It was silent, mysterious, and full of history. He felt gratitude for the sanctuary it had provided, and for the lessons it had taught him. But his mind was already focused on the stars ahead. He knew their journey would be long, filled with challenges and discoveries beyond imagination. And he welcomed it. The shuttle rose, gliding through the atmosphere and into the void. Stars stretched endlessly before them, each one a possibility, a challenge, a destination. Jarek sat beside Lyra, hands resting lightly on the controls, his heart steady and focused. She smiled faintly, a gesture that conveyed trust, friendship, and unspoken understanding. Together, they would face whatever the universe had in store. And as the shuttle accelerated, leaving the alien planet behind, Jarek realized the truth he had felt for so long. Destiny was not something that happened to a person. It was something one shaped, through courage, action, and choice. And with Lyra by his side, he was ready to shape it, to protect the galaxy, and to fulfill a future that had once seemed impossible. For the first time in his life, Jarek felt limitless. The universe awaited, and he would meet it head-on, with Lyra's secret lighting the way, guiding him toward a destiny that would change everything. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, bright, infinite, and full of promise. And Jarek, the ordinary engineer from a mining colony, now stood at the center of an extraordinary adventure, ready to embrace the future and all that it held.